Okay, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the meeting of East Renfrewshire Council this evening. Can I remind you all that the meeting is being shown live on our webcast and will be stored for later viewing, and I do have the ability to suspend filming if anybody misbehaves, which I'm sure you won't. So item 1, apologies for absence. No apologies. Good. Full house tonight. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Can I remind councillors that the Code of Conduct requires elected members to declare any financial or non-financial interests that they may have on any items on tonight's agenda. So are there any declarations of interest? No? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, which is the minute of 13th September, the council minute, which is up for approval of its accuracy. Are there any issues on accuracy? Councillor Grant?
Thank you, Chairman. It's on page 120. I have spoken with Eamon about it. It's the paragraph 128 where I had spoken about the Leisure Trust. I think the sentence, the last sentence, I felt wasn't quite clear about what I was actually saying. I don't know if Eamon, would you like to respond to what I'm saying, because I think the word tenuously was not quite in the right place, and I felt it hadn't made quite sense of what I was trying to come up with.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, Councillor Grant has spoken to me about this issue, and if the members are happy, the word tenuously, as you'll see on the second last line in that particular paragraph, could actually be moved after the word address, and I think that would deal with Councillor Grant's concerns, if I'm correct. And it doesn't really change the decision at all. It maybe just places greater emphasis on the fact that the work was going to be done as soon as possible.
Thank you. It was just I felt that it wasn't clear what I was actually saying, and I think that makes it a bit more sense, shall we say.
Okay, is everybody happy with that slight change to the wording in the minute? Councillor Swift.
Thank you very much, Provost. On page 121, the second paragraph, it ends science, maths and literacy. It should actually be science, maths and reading. So I'd like reading to replace literacy. And in the next paragraph down, he also highlighted that pupils' performance in Scotland was falling behind England, Wales and Ireland. For Ireland, could it be Northern Ireland, please? Because that was, I think, what I said. These are not particularly of any significant moment, and I don't think they would cause anybody any distress if those were changed. The other thing I would like to say as regards accuracy, and this is not actually in the minute, but I think it is important to stress that at one point, it's down at the bottom of page 122, Councillor Buchanan did advise that he had read a minute of a community council meeting, and in that I was reputed to have suggested a 5% cut in education could be put into the roads. I have since discussed that matter with Councillor Buchanan, and he agreed that it was a mistake on his behalf. I would hope that Councillor Buchanan, who gave me not exactly a fulsome apology at the time, might choose to give me a fulsome apology now.
Okay. Well, I think we're here looking at the accuracy of the minute, and I don't see anything about apologies in the minute. Is the minute accurate? And I'm sure if Councillor Buchanan owes you an apology or not, that can be dealt with out with this meeting. Are we okay with the accuracy of the minute then? Okay, thank you. On then to... Sorry? Sorry about... Councillor Aiken, we're dealing with the accuracy of the minute here this evening. Okay, that's just the... Councillor...
Could I please ensure that what has just been said by me and the reply has been minuted, please?
I'm sure Mr Daly, as he always does, will ensure that the minute reflects anything that's discussed in the council chamber. And of course it is recorded on the website. Mr. Daly is reminding me. Okay, happy. Okay, item number 4, which again is the minute of the 28th of September. Again, for accuracy, it's a council minute. Are you comfortable with the wording of it? Okay, thank you. And moving on to the minute volume for 14th September to 24th of October. Are you happy with both the accuracy of the minutes, or indeed are there any questions on that minute volume? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Chairman. Since I'm speaking about the Audit Scrutiny Committee meeting of the 28th of September, which I had to put my apologies in for. So it's 146 I'm going to talk about. At the bottom of page 146, it's all about the annual audit report, etc., etc. And the last paragraph, I would just like to ask kind of maybe clarity in a question. I want to know why the senior officers are not ensuring that the controls that we have in place are not being adhered to, because it could have cost us a lot of money, and I want to hear from whoever why are our controls not doing what they should be doing, which is making sure that we're not getting defrauded.
Well, thank you for that question. I mean, I think it's important to stress and to realise that the council was not defrauded and did not lose any money. So the controls, the various levels of controls that were in place did work. Councillor Aiken, if you wish to speak, please indicate and you will be allowed to speak, but please don't interrupt either myself or other councillors when they're speaking. So it's important there was no money lost, and the report to the audit committee was effectively dealing with the tightening up of the controls. So that was the whole purpose of the agenda item there. But I mean, I'm happy. I don't know if you want to say anything further than that, Councillor Buchanan, or indeed any of the officers.
Thank you. Put my microphone on. Yep. Just to clarify that as soon as the attempted fraud was notified and we became aware of it, at that point the first action that was taken was that internal audit was notified, and at that point it's when the investigation commenced to establish what actually happened. We had to determine the reason for the attempted fraud and whether or not it was because our controls were not sufficient. So that is the assurance that we can give, that the investigation was undertaken at that point by audit, working closely with management of the service to investigate, and we ascertained that this particular incident was down to human error, a mistake, a human error, and we made a full report to the audit committee in August explaining the background and the detail to that. Once we were in full possession of all of the facts following the investigation, we were not in a position to know that. Once we were notified of the attempted fraud, it required the investigation working with audit to establish that.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Councillor Grant, does that satisfy you?
I can just come back on that. I'm sorry that it doesn't fill me with a lot of hope for the future. I'm just concerned that something like this could not happen again. That's my whole point of asking the question. Thank you.
Everybody, Councillor Aiken?
Sorry, the Provost has said that the Council's internal controls dealt with it or picked it up. That's the various controls. That's not, the bank is not one of our controls. The bank is an external body. So you cannot say the Council's system picked it up. This is absolute nonsense to say that.
No, I said the controls in place picked it up. There was no Councillor, there was no loss of money to the council, and that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, we're glad I'm changing the subject again. Basically, I'd like to refer to page 161, 162. The Planning Applications Committee. There was an application, but you turn over to get the minutes, and there is no minute. It's disappeared.
Are you suggesting we're missing a minute here?
Well, there's nothing there.
Okay.
Provost, through you, I think if you look at the appendix which refers to the particular application at 14A Kilmarnock Road, if that's the one that we're talking about, that's the application that's referred to in item number 174, which talks about the application being determined as indicated at Appendix 1, and Appendix 1 relates to that particular application. Appendix 1 is on page 161. Provost, the minute is the first two pages. The appendix is simply the decision list, and as you'll see from the appendix, it does give the decision as refuse.
Yeah, I do see the decision, and yeah, I see all that, but I thought there was a reflection of the discussion. However, I'll take that personally.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to go back to page 146 again. As I understand it, it was a human error that caused this particular problem with our financial controls. 130 companies apparently changed their banking details, and no one checked their new versus their old details, and apparently this is the commonest fraud perpetrated against the public sector. Last time we had a serious failure, we were told that new systems and processes were put in place to resolve problems, and my question is, if it is a problem to do with people, is it a problem to do with the person or the resourcing of that department? Because I'm not sure which. Or is it indeed the systems and processes that didn't enable or ensure that each and every one of these banking changes checked? That's the question.
Could I ask Mrs. Innes perhaps to comment on that then?
Okay. In relation to the point that is being made, there is a considerable amount of change that is going on within the purchase to pay process, generally within the council. There were concerns, management and elected members were concerned about our performance around invoice processing time, and we had suppliers who we were getting lots of complaints about suppliers. So a change programme was put in around the service and the process to improve the process. So there is a considerable amount of change. That is what is going on within the service. You are right to point out it is a relatively small team, and this is one of the challenges around effecting a lot of change at the same time as managing day-to-day business. So there is still a lot of work to do. I don't think we're saying for one moment that the changes and improvements we need to bring about in that service, we're not there yet. There is still a long journey to go in terms of the improvement. But I think at all times we need to give members the assurance from management that proper financial controls must come first. And if that means we need to slow down the pace of change and we need to look at the number of change projects that are going on in there, then I can give you the assurance that management will be doing that, and that we are looking at the resourcing of the team and what kind of resources we need going forward, both to manage the change, going through the change, and then when we're in a steady state in future, what is the permanent resourcing that will be needed in that team. But just to reassure members that at all times proper financial controls will be given priority, will come first, and we just need to make sure that the pace and scale of change that we are putting in place, because we all want to see an improvement in performance, we all want to see our suppliers paid timiously, but that we actually get a proper balance around the pace of that, and that is what management is now looking at. As I say, our first and immediate priority was establishing what happened, the facts, determining if there was any other potential areas that we could have been subject to or that we were weak on, and strengthening that. And once we're through that, it's about looking then at the pace of change and the different change projects. And as I say, the report that we made to Audit Committee talked about the 7 change projects that were ongoing in there just now, and indeed others are now starting up as well. So we need to take a balanced look at that. But I can reassure members that proper financial controls must come first at all times. And as I say, if need to, we will look at the pace of change.
Thank you, Mrs. Innes. Do you want to say any more than that, Councillor Swift? Okay.
I'd like to say I welcome what Mrs. Innes has said, and I think we would all, as elected members, welcome that. Just one more question. Can I ask why it took over 100 days to contact the police about this?
Again, do you want to talk about the timescales on this, Mrs. Innes? No? I mean, we are talking about the minute of the meeting here. And
Just questions on the minutes
okay.
that's related to that.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can answer the question directly. That is a matter for internal audit, but I know that we had discussed it and we agreed that it was something that needed to be reported to the police. So I'm not sure beyond that if there were particular reasons for that or if there were conversations that took place in advance of that. I don't know. I can't answer that question directly.
Okay, Chief Executive wants to comment.
Unfortunately, I don't have the dates in front of me where the police were contacted, but I'm aware that there was an early discussion on the police being contacted. The police priority in these matters is to focus on frauds where there has been a loss to the organisation. So I know even as recently as I think last week, the week before, there was discussions with the police. Frauds of this nature or attempted frauds of this nature are very frequent across private and public sector, and unfortunately many are successful, so the police focus on those. It can take quite a long time for these frauds to be investigated by the police because of the volume. The Chief Auditor uses the national, I can't quite remember the name, but there's a National Fraud Initiative that brings these cases and transfers information between different organisations to highlight frauds. And that's why she was able to confirm from that analysis that we were not the only organisation with this particular fraud. There had been a number of organisations with a similar fraud at the same time. It looks like from the same organisation. I guess many of these are through serious and organised crime, but the police will tend to, I don't want, with police here tonight, I don't want to speak for them, but obviously these, we wouldn't want to discuss any individual fraud investigations in a public environment. Obviously that's up to the police to take forward fraud inquiries at what they feel is the appropriate time and priority.
Thank you, Provost. It'd be useful if somebody could get back to me with an answer as to why it took so long. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not sure there would necessarily be a statement of why it took so long, because it implies that something went wrong, but I'm sure if we can give you the actual timeline, that will be given to you. Okay, Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Provost. I just wanted to quickly ask the police, is that normal practice in cases like that, where you have attempted frauds of such a magnitude, where it's normal practice to go a period of 103 days before they're reported to the police? Is that something that police would support in terms of a standard practice for a local authority?
Can I just confirm, sorry to spring that on you, Chief Superintendent, but I know you're here for a specific agenda item and I haven't yet introduced you, but if you wish to comment on it you can. If you would rather not, don't do so. Okay.
Maybe just to give an example of that, and I'm not sure if this has been reported to the Audit Committee because it was a very case long ago. There was an attempted fraud of the Council many years ago, so far I can't actually remember when, in which my signature was forged, as was the then Director of Finance. That was reported to the police in the normal process of there was no loss to the Council and it was added to the file. It was only many years later that I was contacted by the police and asked to be a witness in a case after a number of years. And my understanding is the police undertook a very complex complex investigation of that. I was expected to be a witness before Brian worries. This is a complete case. This is a case that's complete. I was asked to be a witness down south. I didn't have to go because my evidence was accepted as a statement, and those involved in the case were imprisoned. I got a letter from the Crown to say that a number of people involved in that case had been sent to jail for a number of years. That took many, many years. I don't actually have the date. It was so long ago. I remember I was quite new here when it happened, yet it was only, I think, last year I was supposed to go to court. These cases are very, very complex for the police.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Hi there. But the original question actually was, why did it take 103 days to report an attempted crime? And you're saying that if it's attempted, it's not a crime. Well, attempted murder, that's a crime. They didn't actually manage to murder somebody, but it's an attempted crime. My question is, why did it take 103 days? It's not to do with what police priorities are or about how they deal with a crime. It's about why didn't we report a crime or attempted crime for 103 days? That was the question.
Well, I think it's already been said. I mean, we'll give you the timeline on it. I know if you want to... I mean, these things have to be... I think you've had fairly comprehensive answers from Mrs Innes here this evening. Well, sorry you don't think that, but I mean, I think probably most councillors would think you have. But Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Provost. Just another point of clarification with the police. Is attempted fraud a crime? Okay, so if it's an attempt to commit a crime, and we're talking about an amount of money at £2.3 million that was attempted to be defrauded from the Council. My question, and I'm perplexed by this, why have we waited 103 days? I mean, you talk about complex processes of investigation with fraud. I would imagine they're even more complex when the police don't have the information.
Councillor Devlin.
I mean, financially, did the Council lose any money? And the answer's no. This was an attempted fraud, okay? And I believe that, you know, around about the same time there was frauds throughout Scotland. I believe 2 senior football clubs lost a lot of money. But the point I'm trying to make here is the Council did not lose any money. The opposition, excuse me, let me finish. The opposition has come out with this feeling that the Council are negligent in losing money. The Council did not lose money. So we should applaud the officers for the Council catching it and not losing money. Sorry, I'm not finished yet. You've had your say. Let me finish? That's fine then. If you stop interrupting me, I'll finish. You were interrupting. Sorry. Can we please close this, okay? Because I think everybody's had enough. The Council did not lose any money. The opposition's putting it across that the Council are negligent in not losing money. I've never heard in my life that any organisation's been negligent in not losing money. So please close it.
Comprehensive answers on it. I'm trying to be as democratic as I can, but we will bring it to a close. But Councillor MacDonald, this is your third time, so I think your third and last.
Let me just make a quick point. We're talking about 2 different things here. One is the attempted defraud of the Council. The other is the fact that a crime has not actually been reported by a local authority. That's a major, major thing here we're talking about. The fact that the authority did not take any initiative for 103 days to report
an attempted fraud of £2.3 million. That's a significant attempted crime. Why has the council not reported it to the police? I think the public want to know that.
Well, for clarity, the attempted fraud has been reported to the police.
Oh, it has been reported 103 days after the crime took place. My point is, surely when you're talking about appropriately investigating a crime, time is of the essence in terms of finding the culprits. I want to know why the council took over 3 months to report it. If I was attempted to be defrauded, I would be reporting it to the police the following day, the following hour, after I knew that I was attempted to be defrauded. Why does it take the council 3 months to do it?
Really comprehensive response from the appropriate people on this matter. The Audit Committee, which is the committee which is charged into looking at any improvements that need to be made to make the systems more robust, again, have had a good go at this. As Councillor Miller, I'm sure, will confirm, because he chairs that committee, and that will continue. But I'm really not prepared to continue this anymore this evening, because we're not going anywhere with this. We've had as much information, I think, as anybody could reasonably give you here this evening. So I propose, with your indulgence, to move on from this. Is there any other questions in the minute volume? Okay, can we accept that then? Moving on to item number 6, which are various items which have been remitted from Cabinet. Now, the first thing again, and a belated welcome to Chief Superintendent Brian McAnulty and Chief Inspector Angela Carty. We know them both well, so thank you for coming along here this evening, and apologise for bouncing you into debate earlier than was perhaps the case. But the local policing plan has been referred by Cabinet to full council, and it's open for obviously approval here this evening, but also from any questions or comments from councillors. And the police colleagues are along this evening to very kindly answer anything that they can from a police perspective. So again, welcome, and you're now officially on duty for this item. Thank you. Are there any questions on the police report? No. Councillor Miller.
I'll just know about it.
Thanks very much. I just wondered, are you doing more with horseback crime, or going about in horses?
Can I just say there's a switch on top of your microphone? If you switch it on, it means you're recording, the cameras will come.
Thanks. We had an issue with youth disorder, and we asked for the mounted branch are a national part of Police Scotland, and we have to bid for those resources to go right across Police Scotland. And what we did is we asked for some assistance to try and assist, particularly roundabout parks where youths were gathering. So we had, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in a row we managed to get the horses to come along. Now, we will, again, if we have that issue come up again, we can call on them again. So yes, we will bid for these resources to come along. So we hope that you will see them in the future, yes.
Thank you very much.
Sir Wallace.
Thank you. I was quite alarmed to see on page 10 there, when we look at the local police priorities and objectives, and the local policing priorities, we've got child abuse. Now, this is of particular concern because it would appear to be a local issue. I'd like to know to what extent the police are talking to our own social work people, because I know that the Chief Social Worker's report at the end of this session today doesn't appear to have any mention of child abuse whatsoever. So I'm very alarmed that there's perhaps no communication going on between the police and our social work department on such an important matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. And if it's in order, just by way of introduction, before I actually address that particular question, I was really just to introduce myself formally as Brian McAnulty, Divisional Commander for Greater Glasgow Division. And I've got responsibility for the 3 local authorities, so Glasgow City Council, East Dunbartonshire, and of course here at East Renfrewshire. And Angela, that you will all know Angela as the local area commander here. As divisional commander, I sit actually on the Chief Officers Group along with colleagues here who you'll hear from later on. I consider it a real privilege to be in the post that I'm in. One of the things that I'm really delighted to tell you here tonight is that in the year and a half that I've been in post, the partnership working within East Renfrewshire Council is the best that I have seen in 28 years of policing. I was previously superintendent responsible for this area, and coming back as divisional commander, I've seen that has become even stronger. The relationships are second to none, not only through the formal meeting process, but informally the relationships are absolutely excellent. And I'm sure Angela will be able to talk a little bit more in terms of the local element to that. In terms of child protection, I'm sure that there would be nobody in the room here would disagree that that's an absolute priority for all of us. And that is something that we're seeing now more in the virtual world as well in terms of cybercrime. And that's something that's discussed extensively at the Chief Officers Group. And I'm sure that colleagues will support that position in terms of the partnership working that we have. I don't know if there's anything that Angela wants to add in relation to that.
I think the partnership working is very strong. Just in terms of how we work with social work, we have a concern hub, and we make referrals to social work. If there are issues, then we will have meetings with social work at many levels, sort of thing. I think the priority for the communities in talking about child abuse is the stuff that we're now beginning to get online, and people are beginning to get a wee bit concerned about what their children are being exposed to, particularly online. It's not all particularly about that detection work, it's about the prevention work as well, and maybe that's a lot of people in the communities are looking to see, listen, how are you preventing the work, how are you protecting my children? So it doesn't come from a fear that there's a high instance of child abuse within the communities, but the fear that exposure through the social media. And obviously we do have the work with the social work, but we also have campus officers in schools, so there's prevention work about online security, about how to keep safe and that sort of stuff. So when we talk about child abuse and online exploitation, it's the big part of it for us and communities is that prevention work.
Okay, Mr. McMillan, you wanted to say something on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm the strength of the partnership work. We have a number of committees. We of course have our Child Protection Committee, which is multi-agency, and it's a very active committee, and it's looking both at what we can do to improve child protection and also any cases. There's a number of different subcommittees of that. Just remind you that we had the Children's Inspection a number of years ago, and that was a partnership inspection. It looked at children's services more generally, but with a particular focus on child protection. And that, to date, is still one of the strongest inspections in the whole of Scotland, particularly on the basis of our partnership work. Brian and I meet, we talked about the Chief Officers Group, Brian and I meet every 6 months along with Mrs Murray, with Kate in attendance, and with one of our colleagues from NHS Greater Glasgow. And our role is to do very tough scrutiny to ensure that everything we are doing to protect children can be done. So we have an overall scrutiny role of that. Kate provides regular reports to us for that meeting, which are very thorough. We've now extended that from, we look at child protection, we look at adult protection, because the laws for that are very similar. And we also look at some of the more offender-related activity that we need to do. So we look at public protection, and we believe it's an example of good practice. But all NHS, ourselves and the police in particular, work hand in hand as one team in all these things, and it's a matter we take very seriously, and it's a matter all the senior officers take very seriously, because it's a very personal commitment we all have to make sure that we do everything we can to reduce the amount any abuse of a child in our area.
Thank you for that, Chief Executive. And does that give you sufficient reassurance, Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Provost. Perhaps we can hear from the Chief Social Work Officer on the last item of the agenda. Could maybe broach it. Thanks very much.
So she's picked up on that. Councillor Swift.
Thank you very much, Provost. Could I ask Brian what proportion of Police Scotland's resources are devoted to online crime, and that includes online fraud and online abuse, child abuse, that sort of stuff? Please.
Provost, I'm not able to give a figure to that, but what I would say is it's absolutely a growth area for us, and actually there's more and more. Within the division itself, we have now got our own divisional cybercrime unit to support local officers in their investigations at a national level, and that's one of the real benefits now that we're clearly 4 or 5 years into Police Scotland, and at a national level now, the support we get from the facility at Gartcosh, the Scottish Crime Campus, is world class actually. So I'm not able to give you an exact figure. That's something that I can come back to through the Provost, if that's something that you would want me to get the exact number of officers that are dedicated throughout Scotland. I don't have the figures to hand, unfortunately.
Okay, any other questions on the local policing plan? Councillor Devlin. Microphone on, Councillor Devlin, please.
The police budget, is there anything in the police budget to purchase a quad bike? I tell you the reason I'm asking, there's a group of youths obviously using their quad bikes round about Barhead, and the only way we're going to catch them is if we get a police officer on a quad bike. So
we have in the division, we have a number of what we call our off-road motorbikes.
Right.
So they're just 2 wheels, not 4.
Right.
But we did, in fact, they have been up in and around Barhead because there's an issue, Councillor, round about St Luke's with us. So we have the off-road motorbikes, we have that ability to go in, so I have asked for them a number of occasions, and I know we were giving them, so I can try and get them more visible, hopefully, sort of thing, but you should see them because they're in full uniform with yellow jackets, and they're looking off-road bikes. Right. They can go on obviously on the highways and byways, but they are built off-road, and the officers are trained to go off-road on them. And it's specifically for things like that. So
you'll buy them a top quad bike?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love it, but but as we have the kind of 2-wheelers, we won't buy them.
What was all the horses you had? That's great, thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other questions in the local policing report, Councillor?
Just very quickly, I just want to acknowledge and give thanks to the Chief Inspector Carty for her swift response with regards to the antisocial behaviour problems that we've been having in Ward 4. She responded very quickly with all manner of different tactics, one of which was the police horses that she mentioned earlier. My question to her was, going forward, is that something you could realistically see as a routine deployment in terms of, rather than actually a response to a hotspot of activity, rather actually having regular patrols using police horses? Because I know that the feedback that I've gotten from my constituents in Ward 4, it was met with a great deal of positive response.
Yeah, as I said, unfortunately the horses are a national resource, and they are used at football matches up and down across the country, sort of thing, so they are quite a scarce resource. But when the football's not on, they're available for us to get, and it's just a matter of me making sure that I'm bidding for them as often as I can, and just kind of become a nuisance, because I know they make a huge difference. But they're very visible, they're very huge, I mean they're a massive presence, and they do attract attention, and it's a good thing for us. But yes, well I can't say that I can maintain a routine patrol, I just couldn't manage to say that, but I will routinely bid to get them, yeah. I will do.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? And we note your thanks to the police. Any other points? Okay, can we accept then that the local policing plan for our area, formally approve it, and can I thank both Brian and Angela for coming along here this evening and dealing with the questions that have come your way. Thank you very much. you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. And if you have prior policing things that you need to attend to, we shall understand if you choose to leave. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then to the General Fund Capital Programme, again which has been remitted from Cabinet for approval of the amendments therein. Any comments on that, and can I have your approval?
Thank you, Provost. I see within this report we've got £2.5 million worth of slippage, which is quite a sizable amount. Audit Scotland take quite a dim view of such a substantial proportion of slippage. I just wondered if we were doing what we were doing to diminish the amount of slippage in our capital spend.
Councillor Buchanan.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yes, it is, and I was quite surprised at that level as well. But you can rest assured that we are doing everything possible that amount of slippage does not occur. Clearly, there are some issues where we have no control over it, and it's issues beyond our means that that occur on an annual basis. But yes, we are making every penny counts, if you like, and we will endeavour to ensure that we get money spent on the issues that are raised when we need to spend it. There will always be, no doubt, some issues that are, as I've said, beyond our control, but we will make every effort to ensure that the expenditure that is there is well utilised.
Okay, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Provost. You see on page 32, cost code 5288, Master Planning Eastwood Park Leisure. I'm just curious as to when this master plan will be forthcoming. If somebody could answer that, thank you.
I should do a date for it. Councillor Buchanan.
Don't have a final date or anything for it yet, but you can rest assured that work is ongoing, and I'm expecting a paper on the Eastwood Leisure Centre coming to Cabinet or Council in the very near future.
Approve the amendments to the plan. Thank you. And moving on to the Housing Capital Programme, again remitted from Cabinet for the amendments therein and for your approval here this evening. We're again happy to take any questions on it. Okay, can we approve it? Thank you. Moving on then to item number 7. We have a notice of motion which is printed in your papers in front of you. The motion is moved by Councillor Angela Convery and seconded by Councillor Annette Ireland. And I'll ask them to speak on this shortly. But firstly, can I confirm, are there any amendments to the motion? Councillor Swift.
Provost, I'm contemplating one just now.
Well, if I could ask you to complete your contemplate, there either is or there isn't. I need to know now. So do you have an amendment?
I would like to comment on it, if I may.
You will be allowed to comment on the motion, but there is no amendment then. Right, okay, thank you. So could I then call on Councillor Convery to move the motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. I would just like to say I'm delighted to propose this motion. As stated by Monica Lennon, MSP, it is an uncomfortable truth that not every woman and girl can afford to buy essential female hygiene products, essential being the operative word. Sanitary products are a necessity and not a luxury. Women and girls are struggling to pay for basic sanitary products. This has a huge impact on their hygiene, health and well-being. One woman stated at a food bank, "It's not the hunger that gets us, it's the lack of basic hygiene." This is the hidden side of poverty. For far too long, menstruation has been a taboo subject. Period poverty is a very real issue, and it is definitely not something that should be swept under the carpet. This motion will show that East Renfrewshire Council welcomes progressive policies and will be a leader in ending period poverty. Please support this motion.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Ireland, do you want to say anything on it?
I'm absolutely delighted to second this motion today. I think it's an incredibly important one, and I think it shows the Council here as being very progressive if passed. So, delighted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ireland. I will throw it up for any comments on the motion. Councillor Swift, do you want to make your
Thank you,
contribution
Provost.
then?
Yes, I would like to make comment. I was shopping today in Sainsbury's and I thought, do you know what? Let's find out what are the costs associated with sanitary protection. And I looked into it, did some Googling, and apparently 70% of UK women use tampons. And in Sainsbury's, a pack of 32 tampons is £1.40. So that makes each tampon 4.375 pence. Menses lasts on average between 2 and 7, or the extremes are 2 and 7 days, usually 3 to 5 days, and the average woman uses 20 tampons during menses. So, the average cost of sanitary protection for each menses is 87.5 pence. Each female has 13 periods a year, so the cost is £11.38. Now, there are other sanitary protection providers other than Sainsbury's own label, so, I mean, it may vary slightly. So, assuming it's £11.38 per annum, children or young people go to school for about 40 weeks out of 52, and there are weekends on the days that they go, on the weeks that they go to school. So, on average, 55% of young people's time is at school. That would mean that of that £11.38, assuming that every day they were at school, would equate to a saving to that individual of £6.25. So I would accept that not everyone can afford expensive things. I would accept lots of things, but I would not accept that 12 pence a week is a particularly large and intrusive level of expenditure for an average person. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you for your illumination in that. Any other comments, Councillor MacDonald?
Thank you, Provost. I would just like to offer my words of support for this. As a father of 2 daughters who are not of age yet to be at menstruation, but will eventually be, I think it's an important piece of legislation that needs to be brought in. I think we have a duty to put forward progressive motions at this council. And I think there's, touching on Councillor Swift's point that he raised about cost, I think there's a bigger, more important message that needs to be made here, and that is that we have to remind ourselves that we all come from the womb, and mothers, it's a hardship in itself to carry a child for 9 months. Women go through menstruation, and that's obviously something that they have to deal with. That is not, tampons aren't a luxury item, they're a necessity item, and I think we need to put forward a message as far as the council is concerned to say that we're modern and progressive thinking. Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald, can I ask Councillor O'Kane to speak?
Thank you, Provost. Delighted to respond to the motion as convener for education and equalities. It is an extremely important issue for women and girls across East Renfrewshire and indeed Scotland, and I want to commend my 2 colleagues for the way they've raised it this evening. I know that issues of equality for women and girls are of great importance to them, and they're also of great importance to me, the Education Department, and I sense for colleagues across the chamber. Let me be clear that I agree wholeheartedly that no girl or woman in society should be prevented from access to sanitary products due to their personal circumstances. They are not a luxury, as we've heard already, but a necessity. And I'm glad that the Scottish Government has recognised a genuine cross-party effort to make this an issue of national importance. I particularly want to pay tribute to the leader of North Ayrshire Council this evening, Joe Cullinane, for his work in being the first council to make sanitary products free in schools via dispensers. Having spoken to Joe, I know that he was inspired by some of the young women who serve in North Ayrshire's Youth Cabinet and responded to their calls for change. I'm pleased to announce this evening that officers in the Education Department are already working to ensure that sanitary products are provided free and are made available in a way that does not stigmatise anyone. At present, our schools do provide free sanitary products, although via the school office, which can often be embarrassing for the person involved. We are exploring ways to make sanitary products available via dispensers, something which we already do in St Ninian's High School. We will move to roll this out as quickly as possible, and we are responding fully to the Scottish Government survey on what is required to make this a reality. So working in partnership, we will deliver free sanitary products in our schools without the stigma of having to ask as soon as we can. Once again, I commend the motion and hope that we will all see that East Renfrewshire is determined to lead on ending period poverty. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor O'Kane. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Miller.
Thanks very much. It's been very interesting listening to the previous speakers, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think anybody's arguing with them.
Any other contributions? I don't think anybody's moving against it, so hopefully it will pass unanimously if I detect that's the meaning. But I don't know if you want to say anything to sum up, Councillor Convery? No, that's fine. Okay. So can I take it then nobody's against this? So we'll pass it unanimously. Okay? Thank you. You're too late, Danny, for that contribution. Item number 8, questions to conveners. Again, on your paper this evening, there is a printed question from Councillor Swift, which Councillor Buchanan will respond to. And then Councillor Swift will have the opportunity to respond again and be answered by Councillor Buchanan if required. So therefore, could I invite Councillor Swift just to restate the question on the paper?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, the Council has had a significant number of substantially large failures in its financial controls over the last few years. Information has not been released to elected members about these failings in as timely a fashion as I would like, most recently bypassing an election until released. What financial threshold does the Council feel is reasonable, above which a failure in financial controls should be notified to elected members, and how quickly should it be released?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Buchanan.
Thanks, Provost. Yeah, and perhaps I'll maybe touch on some of the issues that were mentioned earlier during the debate around some of the minutes. The Council does have a clear processes and timescales in place for the notification of potential frauds, thefts or irregularities. The notification is first to the relevant line manager and then to the Chief Auditor or Head of Accountancy. And subject to the materiality of the matter will then be reported to the relevant committee once the investigation work is complete or a loss is identified, and that's the important aspect in it. As material financial losses go, they will have an impact clearly on the operation of the Council. So material losses will be brought to the attention of councillors, they'll be brought to Cabinet and the Council, obviously, by the Head of Accountancy, should there be a material loss. Now, for information purposes, a material loss by our external fraud teams is usually looked at as anything greater than £30,000. For suspected failures in financial controls, which do not result in a financial loss to the Council, the situation will be audited. Clearly, we've got to find out what's happened, if there's something gone wrong, what's gone wrong, and where it went wrong. That action will be taken by officers, if necessary, to tighten controls, and if required, and then highlighted through the quarterly report to the Audit Committee, as has happened in general in all of the years, certainly that I've been a councillor. Information is also included in the public annual reports, such as the annual accounts, and the Chief Auditor's Statement of Internal Controls. In this case, in terms of this unsuccessful fraud attempt, all the timescales were adhered to. In addition, officers voluntarily provided very detailed additional reports to the first available Audit Committee after completion of the internal audit report with the papers in the public domain. And bear in mind, we also had information passed to external auditors who were also equally looking at that, because the priority at that point in time was to find out if there was internal fraud, if there was external fraud, even perhaps from the companies that we were dealing with. So a much bigger picture had to be looked at. So that investigation was vital. And it's at that stage, obviously, clearly, we would then use that information and pass that information to the police, who equally would then potentially have an interest in that. The external audit have reviewed this matter in some detail and have been kept fully informed as well. There has been no financial loss to the Council, as has been said on numerous occasions. In your question, you've asked what the threshold is for a failure in financial controls, and should that be notified to elected members. Well, I can confirm that at the moment that any confirmed loss of more than 10,000 would be notified to the Cabinet. What I would also say, and what is equally open to discussion, and perhaps for the Audit Committee to bring forward, is that external fraud are notified at any loss of greater than 5,000, and that's the threshold that they normally have. Where no loss has been incurred, officers must be given the time to fully investigate the circumstances in suspected control failures, and to be able to provide sufficient information to allow the Audit Committee to carry out their scrutiny role. And had discussions with officers have suggested that they consult with other councils to determine what happens elsewhere, to ensure that we get the best balance between carrying out audits confidentially and the necessary transparency and scrutiny that's required to ensure that our processes are as good as they can be. If the Audit Committee clearly, in their scrutiny role, as they have been very good at over the years, can add value to the work in strengthening financial controls further, then obviously their input would be welcomed, and I'm not aware of any occasions when in the past when the views of the Audit Committee have not been taken on board if they see that there is an issue arising. So that's effectively the process that is currently in place. That's the rules that we currently work to, and that's the rules that have been applied in this instance.
Thank you very much for comprehensive reply, Councillor Buchanan. Sorry, can I make it clear, as I tried to do at the start, this is not a matter which is open for further discussion, which is why I was very... You cannot... No, you cannot, no. The only person that can respond to that is Councillor Swift, if he wishes to... It's not censorship, but that's the standing orders. Do you wish to respond, Councillor Swift? No, sorry. Do you have a response, Councillor Swift? If you don't, we're going to move on, because we have...
Provost, I do have a response. I think what we have here, or what we had, was there was no material loss to the Council, which is good news. However, that was not down to the effectiveness of our internal financial controls. We had a significant and serious failure in our financial controls, and it was thanks to the bank, not the Council, that we didn't lose that money. And I think that's kind of quite important here. And I think what I'm trying to say, or what I'm trying to infer, is that it would be very useful if, when we have a very serious failure in our financial controls, that elected members are informed. Now, that's why I was asking at what timelines are appropriate and above which threshold. And Councillor Buchanan has been very helpful and given me quite clear guidance on the thresholds. But I'm not so sure on the timelines. And I think with a serious failure in your financial controls, just before an election, I think it would have been helpful if everyone had been informed at that particular time, because I think it would have been interesting to the public.
I was looking for if you had any further questions on the statement rather than your comment on it, because I think we've done this to death.
Okay, I have a question.
Is there a question in this?
I have a question. Can I ask why that the two SNP, Labour and one of the two independent councillors were informed prior to the Leader of the Opposition and indeed the largest party in the Council, the Conservatives, and the other independent councillor were not informed at the same time as their administration counterparts, please?
Councillor Buchanan, do you want to?
From the information that I have or that I'm aware of, we were notified not in terms of a routine. We were having a meeting and it was mentioned to us. We asked several questions clearly when it was first brought to our attention in terms of our internal controls, if there had been an investigation, the outcome of those investigations, etc., and indeed if the matter had been reported to the police. We also asked that everyone be advised as soon as they possibly could be as to what the outcome of those investigations are. My understanding, along with colleagues when we were notified, is that I know Stuart was going to be spoken to as his role in terms of the Audit Committee, and that a full report was going up to the Audit Committee, fully transparent with the information included. That was my understanding, and that would have happened, I think it would be mid-June, thereabouts.
I throw it out to other, because there is a clear process here involved, so thank you for the responses. Is it a point of clarification you have?
It's a point of clarification. Sorry, it's a point of clarification what Councillor Buchanan said. he refers that I heard about towards the end of June. It was actually a prior meeting with Caroline just prior to the Audit Committee in the 23rd of June, 23rd of August, sorry. So it was probably a week before the Audit Committee, so you're talking kind of 14th, 15th of August was the first I heard of Caroline, and I'm sure can confirm.
Well, that's probably well before me, if it gives you any comfort as well. Okay, we've done that one to death, I think. Can we move on then? Item number 9, the Provost engagements for noting. And item number 10, statements by conveners. I have a statement from Councillor Merrick.
Thank you, Provost. I've got a couple of points to cover in this statement, so now's a good time to fill a glass of water if anybody wants to. Okay, so we'll start with, this is a statement for a convener of community services and community safety. Okay, so we'll start with Eastwood Park Leisure Centre. Following recent stories run on social media, I would like to confirm at this meeting, again, over and above the swimming pool at Eastwood High School, there will always be a swimming school for Eastwood residents, either refurbished or new build. ERC, East Renfrewshire Council, has already been quite clear that Eastwood Park Leisure Centre is not being run down in any way, as a minimum capital investment of £6 million has already been identified to improve and modernise the current facility. However, as convener, I am keen to see that all options are considered to make sure that future investment achieves the very best for our residents. The Council continues to work closely with Eastwood Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust, which operates the facility, to consider the best way forward and explore options to improve services, which would of course include a swimming pool, before presenting any proposals to full Council for their consideration. The next item is about the Barclay Report. Following publication of the Barclay Report, which suggested that charitable trusts delivering sport, leisure and cultural services on behalf of councils should no longer receive non-domestic rates relief, the Cabinet Secretary announced to the Scottish Parliament in September that, and I quote, "After engaging with stakeholders, I believe a small number of recommendations need further thought and engagement. These recommendations that require further consideration and engagement are those that remove charity relief for certain recipients, including ALIOs. Consultation is expected to conclude later this year and has been jointly coordinated for the sector by the National Association of Leisure Trusts, SPORTA, and the National Association for Culture and Leisure Managers, FOCAL. East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust is represented in both groups. Current signs are that the Government intend to implement the changes, though this may require either a parliamentary vote or a change to primary legislation. One proposal in the report is to remove the non-domestic rates allowance from local authority budgets from the 1st of April 2018. On a lighter note, Summer Reading Challenge 2017. I am very pleased to report that the annual Tesco Bank Summer Reading Challenge in East Renfrewshire Libraries was once again a great success. Children aged between 4 and 12 were challenged to read at least 6 books throughout the summer, with rewards to collect along the way. Those who succeeded in reading 6 books received certificates and medals presented to them at ceremonies in various libraries across the authority. This year's theme was Animal Agents, a detective agency staffed by all kinds of clever animals, but who need the reader's help to solve a mystery. The challenge was a great way of helping children to keep up their reading skills and confidence over the summer holidays. And this year, almost 1,400 children participated from across the authority, and that was in line with last year. So congratulations to the staff at the libraries and East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust for that. Now, you may notice a presentation award in the desk up there, which I hope will pass around later on. That's what the next bit's about. So, this is an initiative to reduce teenage pregnancy in Auchenbeck, Barrhead, developed and led by the Corporate and Community Services Young Persons Services team, was recently recognised at COSLA's annual Convention Awards ceremony on the 5th of October 2017. Delighted to advise you that the service won a COSLA Gold Award under the award category of Achieving Better Outcomes in Partnership. The area of Auchenbeck had consistently above average teenage pregnancy rates for a decade and accounted for 21% of East Renfrewshire's teenage pregnancies. By combining data analysis and improvement science with community learning and development techniques, while working in partnership with local young parents and local high schools, the initiative reduced the teenage pregnancy rate in Auchenbeck by 60%. East Renfrewshire now has the lowest teenage pregnancy rate in Scotland. In Barrhead, the percentage of first-time mums aged 19 or under has fallen from 22% to 9%. This reduction is far faster than the national rate. Teenage pregnancy and early parenthood are widely associated with poor health and life chances. By working together with local young parents and high schools, this initiative is focusing on prevention in order to improve outcomes for young adults and cut demand for reactive social work, health and justice services. Colleagues, I want to convey to you this national recognition and superb example not only of the benefits of partnership working, but also its prevention contribution. And as I said earlier, you'll see the COSL Award is on display in the chamber this evening. I'd like to thank the staff who have contributed to this successful approach, namely Susan Kreiner, Kim Cleland, Pamela McCulley, Susie Reid and Mark Hines. I hope you'll join with me in sending our sincere congratulations to the service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Merrick, for that report, and I'm sure we do all endorse the hard work that goes into getting these COSLA awards. It's not easy. Could I ask Councillor Banforth to give a regular statement on the HSCP progress?
Thank you, Provost. Mine is much shorter than Collinson's. Kate will be speaking shortly. Our last Integration Joint Board meeting was on the 27th of September. At that meeting I was able to formally sign our annual accounts for 2016-17. This sets out the financial performance of the Integration Joint Board and explains our governance procedures. Copies are available if anyone or any council member wishes to scrutinise the health and social care partnership arrangements. In our meeting today, the Chief Social Work Officer, Kate Rocks, is reporting to the Council on the delivery of safe, effective and innovative social work. The Integration Joint Board regularly benefits from Kate's professional advice and extensive experience, but we're aware that the Chief Social Work Officer role is statutory and she does report to the Council. As a member of the Council, I look forward to hearing Kate's report and discussing her report later this evening. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Bamforth. Can we move on then? There are no statements, other statements from joint boards or committee chairs. Moving on to appointments to outside organisations. We do have a few unfilled vacancies still, which I'd like to complete this evening. The first one, item 12.1 on your papers, is a substitute for the Clyde and Loch Lomond Local Plan District Joint Committee. Is there anyone willing to serve in that as a substitute? If not, I would give it to Councillor Devlin, who's the only one catching my eye. No. Okay, I think Councillor O'Kane had indicated he would be prepared to do it, so could I ask for your approval for Councillor O'Kane in that one. Item number 2 is the Lowland Reserve Forces and Cadets Association was formally represented by Councillor McCaskill, I believe, yes, no longer with us in the council. Sure he's striving not being here this evening, but okay. Does anyone wish to take over the post that was held manfully by Councillor McCaskill for many years? Councillor Wallace? Okay. Consider yourself duly elected. What I probably should have told you, and I haven't done so far, is I don't think they meet very often, but unfortunately it's tomorrow night, Thursday 26th at I think 6:30 or something. Anyway, I will pass the papers over. If you're able to go tomorrow night, that would be helpful. If not, you could obviously present apologies. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, which is the Scottish Council on Visual Impairment. It was, I think, previously Councillor Lafferty's position as chair of the HSCP. I don't know if Councillor Bamforth wishes to take over their current position. I don't see any other hands going up, so in the absence of any volunteers, could ask Councillor Bamforth to cover that. And item 4 is the Scottish Council's Committee on Radioactive Substances. I think Councillor Lafferty had indicated he might be willing to do that. I think he already sits in it, is that correct? Yes. No, you don't know. Are there any volunteers? No. Okay. We have been bending fingers to get people to do it, as you would see here this evening, in case there are no volunteers. Our Conservative colleagues are very welcome if you wish to go to any of these. No? Okay, Councillor Lafferty. Okay. He's the only one behaving tonight. Right, and the last one, number 5, is the Supplier Development Programme. Again, I think Councillor Buchanan is the current member and was willing to continue if you're happy with that. Okay, thank you very much. And our last agenda item here this evening, which has already been alluded to, is the Chief Social Work Officer's annual report. Now this report is with us this evening for discussion and approval before onward submission to the Scottish Government. So could I ask Mrs. Kate Rocks to speak to the paper here this evening? Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. I'm delighted to report the many significant improvements and the excellent performance across social work functions and statutory functions that I am responsible for as the Chief Social Work Officer over the last year. And I think it is my belief that this has improved the quality of life for our most vulnerable citizens. Nevertheless, the challenges for 2017-18 and beyond are without precedent, with a proposed reduction of local authority funding by 20%. I think it would be helpful for the Council to realise that across the UK, local authority funding from government has been reduced by 38% for social work since 2012, while social workers continue to see higher levels of complexity caused by trauma that has been impacted by austerity, increases in demand and demographic changes. This is without any real investment into the social work profession. As I've already stated within the report, and as you can see within the report, a number of our service users have already experienced significant adversity and trauma in their lives, and the impact on the proposed reduction on the HSCP budget will, in my view, increase risk for them and create greater inequalities. Recent research published in 2016 has evidenced that under these conditions, that this may mean that for East Renfrewshire, it is likely that there will be an increase in child protection and possibly adult protection activity, whilst that bringing an increased demand on diminished resources. As the Council's professional advisor, this is a matter for the elected members to consider through the consultation process. It is ultimately their decision to make, but we can no longer deny the impact of austerity. My last words are to the social workers and others within the HSEP, and particularly our partners, who continue, despite the financial uncertainties, to make a real life for the citizens of East Renfrewshire. I would therefore ask the Council to acknowledge their significant contribution, which is outlined in my report, and thank them for all their hard work.
Thank you very much, Ms Rocks, for that commentary on the report. Can I open it up to any questions? Councillor Aiken first.
Can I just first of all say that it sounds like the Chief Social Worker is making a political point, and I thought officers are supposed to be impartial. Our comments about the impact of austerity, do we really want to go down that road, and do we want to talk about it in detail? The Barnett formula has meant that Scotland has been largely protected. The Scottish Government has different priorities like wind farms and free prescriptions, university education. The actual budget for Scotland has been protected, so to start talking about 38% cuts, that's just not true in Scotland. And the basic point is, it's not fair for an officer to make political points, and I think she ought to decline to do it, and I think it should be struck from her statement. That's the first point I want to make. That it's not correct for an officer to make political points. Okay.
Ms Rocks believes that's a factual point about the reduction, in fairness, but do you want to make all the points that you wish to make then, Councillor Aiken?
The second point was actually just on the report itself, on page 112. It's just for clarification point. It talks about the number of investigations into principal harm as regards adult protection. I mean, maybe you could just talk us through it. Obviously, in first glance, it seems to be there's a 58% increase in physical harm, investigations into physical harm, 100% increase in sexual harm, 46% increase in neglect, 90% increase in self-harm. That's obviously huge numbers, a huge increase in the number of investigations. Could you maybe give us a bit of detail about what the conclusion were to these investigations, and why the number of them have increased so dramatically?
I can't seem to find the percentages around the 100%, but what I am aware of, because it's a number, okay, what I am aware of, that there's much better early identification, and particularly from Police Scotland. The vast majority of the referrals that do come in are from Police Scotland. East Renfrewshire have been probably one of the most progressive local authorities in terms of raising the profile of adult support and protection. I think that the work that has been done in terms of the preventative services that sits within Andy Cahill's area around financial misuse have been modelled and taken as an example of good practice. I think it's a good thing that we're actually seeing an increase in adult support and protection in referrals. I think that for our most vulnerable adults, it's been hidden for a long time, so I would suggest that it's a positive situation, particularly when previously where it came from sexual harm. In terms of that has always been traditionally that have been underreported. The fact that now people are actually recognising that that is a risk is a positive thing.
Okay, thanks, Ms Rocks. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Provost. I would say that this is quite an encouraging report. There are lots of really good things happening despite the austerity. So I think despite having less resources, we seem to be able to be doing more, which is encouraging. And I think the use of the connectors and re-ablement are particularly good use of the resources we have to save spending even more. So, there are, as I say, perhaps some positive responses, because let's face it, keeping people out of hospital is a good thing for them, generally speaking, as well. Because there's lots of reasons you don't want to go into hospital. What I would also say is the 20% projected shortfall in funding, which is quite substantial for the future, is of course a political thing. And it's not necessarily made in this chamber, it's made elsewhere. Or most of it is made elsewhere. So I think it's fair to say that we should recognise that the Scottish Government, who have been protected, as Councillor Aiken said, and there is a £1,300 per head additional benefit in being Scottish and part of the United Kingdom that we get, has helped us be better resourced than perhaps we would have been, or certainly better resourced than we would have been had we been independent. So I think there's some stuff in here that's really encouraging. The one thing I would have picked up on, like Councillor Aiken did, was the concern around the investigations in adult care, which has already been picked up on, so I'm not going to raise that. So I think that's welcome. The only thing I would say about that is these are investigations, not outcomes. It would be quite interesting to know what the difference in outcomes were, 2015 versus 2014, or 2015-16 versus 16-17, which is not, you might not have all that data yet, I don't know. But I'd be curious to know if we're investigating more and finding less, or investigating more and finding more.
Thank you, Councillor Swift. I don't know if you wish to respond, or are able to respond to. Okay. Does that satisfy you, Councillor Swift? Yeah, I'll allow you a supplementary.
Thank you, you're a generous man, Provost. What can I say? Does that mean we're uncovering more or uncovering less overall?
I think we uncover more as we move forward. I think that sometimes thresholds for referrals are not always consistent when meeting the 3-point test. But I actually think that we're better knowing than not knowing, and then we can actually do that bit of investigation than actually people being a bit paralysed about making the referral. I think what we're seeing is that there's a level of confidence there to make the referral. The conversions I don't have to hand, but not everything goes forward within adult support and protection. But what we're keen to do is to look at what the themes are and how do we build in the use of data about how we manage that and put the improvements in place. And that will include public information and an understanding of some of the risks that lie within East Renfrewshire.
Thank you very much, Provost. Can I ask, has there been any, or has there been substantial savings due to moving into the Eastwood Health and Care Centre? And subsequently, do you have any news on the disposal of the Clarkson Social Work Office?
I don't think that's a matter for myself. This report is based on the functions, the statutory functions of the Chief Social Work Officer. It wouldn't be something that I would address in this report. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Lafferty.
Just briefly, Provost, can I ask the Chief Social Work Officer that I'm very pleased to see the falling rate of child registrations. I think that's a significant good news element. It's a falling rate of children needing care. I think part of that may be due, I see, to the success in recruiting foster carers here in East Renfrewshire.
I think these are good aspects, but I think we also have to take note of the challenges you and your colleagues are facing in the social work profession in East Renfrewshire and across the whole of the country. And you're absolutely correct, and it's essential that you do that.
Other comments on the report, Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Provost. Just to come back on what I mentioned earlier on with the police, I'm reading between the lines from the police that it's more people's perception that there was a problem with child abuse. I'm just trying to clarify, is it a particular problem in East Renfrewshire or is it more to do with perception? Thank you.
It's a problem nationally. I think that actually we work with the police daily, and if you refer to under the child protection activity bit, it will talk about initial referral discussions. These are tripartite initial referrals that are discussed, and decisions that are being made jointly, primarily with police and social work, but in consultation with health, about how we plan an investigation. Child protection activity will never go away for us. We will never ever crack that problem. Online activity is a significant issue. Child sexual exploitation is a significant issue for us as we move forward. It's hidden, it's insidious, so it's nothing that we can address. All I can say to you is that this report offers some level of reassurance to you as the Council that we are working hard to put the key processes, and the performance is good within East Renfrewshire for child protection. We do things well, and we, in the main, keep children safe.
Thank you, Ms Rocks. Any other questions? Can we approve that report then, and that report will now go to Scott? That was our last agenda item for this evening, so can I thank you all for your attendance and perseverance. It's for